Yes, Daikaiju fans, this is Double RPG here, and welcome to my next Retro Live Commentary Let's Play for the weekends. For the next 3 weeks, we are going to be taking a look at Super Godzilla on the Super Nintendo. So yes, as you would have guessed, I am actually doing a Retro Live Commentary Let's Play on this game. And a lot of you might be wondering, why in the hell am I doing a Let's Play on a Godzilla game when most of them back during the times of the NES and Super Nintendo were not really that great? Well, I decided to change things up a little bit. Sure enough, I've been doing the Let's Plays on the really great games, but, it's time for us to do something that's a little bit more obscure. But, when I play this game, I really don't think of it as obscure as most people think, because of it being being a game that had an original idea, but just wasn't executed very well. But I don't think it's a total loss of a game. I think it's one of those games where it's a hit and miss to be best, because it is beatable and it's not really that difficult to beat it. So if you can beat it, then at least there's some decency. But anyway, as you would have guessed by taking a look at the story, it shows that in the year 1990X, that Japan has come under attack by the evil King Ghidorah. And the people who ride the Super X work together, or the people who work together to try to save the planet Earth, attempt to take control of Godzilla using a mind control chip. Or some type of substance to where they can actually control him to where he can do their bidding. And so a bunch of Godzilla's opponents are actually located in Japan, so it's up to us to save Japan from this oncoming threat, because a bunch of aliens have taken control of Godzilla's enemies. So yeah, we will be going up against your favorite Japanese movie monsters that are enemies to Godzilla, like King Ghidorah, Mecha-Godzilla, Biollante, and even Batra, and Mecha-King Ghidorah, and the original one that is known as Bagan. So, yes, we are going to get started with a new game, and we are going to see what the Japanese are planning to try, or what they're trying to do in order to fight off against the evil monster threat. So, as you would have guessed from the intro also, they managed to break the fourth wall there, saying that it is up to you to control Godzilla with your hands on the controller, or whatever they call it. But anyway, they're giving you a brief synopsis on what to expect for when you go through the through the levels and stuff. But anyway, our first opponent is King Ghidorah in Osaka. But before we get into the level, let me give you a little brief history lesson about King Ghidorah, okay? In the original Heisei, or whatever series, or the Showa series that produced the Godzilla films, King Ghidorah actually made his appearance in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which was the 5th Godzilla film overall. And he became one of Godzilla's most memorable adversaries to this day, and he made his appearance in about 7 other films in the Godzilla franchise, but also made some appearances in other monster movies, kind of like, I think King Ghidorah made an appearance in one of the Return of Mothra films, but I can't even tell. But King Ghidorah is a 3-headed dragon that can shoot out lightning rays from its mouth, or he can fly by very fast and knock things down with the wind that he generates from the speed of his flight. He's a 3-headed dragon, but he comes from outer space, so either he can be controlled, or he could just attack at his own will. And as I said, he's one of Godzilla's most memorable enemies, and probably the best one to date, and his likeliness in terms of his caricature has been used in other video games to this day, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics, with the enemy dragons that have the 3 heads. But yes, King Ghidorah is still very memorable to this day, and many people wonder how King Ghidorah is going to be portrayed in the next upcoming set of Godzilla films. Well, that's kind of hard to say. Besides, we already know that Legendary Pictures is already planning an American reboot that's not to follow up the travesty of the 1998 film that was done by Roland Emmerich. But we'll have to see where Legendary Pictures takes King Ghidorah when they do the Godzilla reboot. If they decide to keep it an ongoing series or whatever, but maybe Toho will end up making more movies after the American reboot, but we'll have to see. It's good to see that both an American company and a Japanese company are collaborating together to produce something that could potentially be great and totally rectify the travesty that is the 1998 film from back about 14 years ago. But anyway, it's time for us to get on with King Ghidorah, so let's go ahead and get this battle started, shall we? Alright, and as you can tell, our first level is here in Osaka, and this is what the game actually looks like, or the gameplay rather. While the graphics look really good, and they represent what Godzilla should be about, but the gameplay is what's truly different about this game. I mean, it's kind of like an action and RTS hybrid, or a tactical game hybrid, because of you controlling Godzilla to travel around the city, and the map kind of looks like that of what you would expect for a tactics game. It's kind of similar to that, but, you know, it's totally different, so I can't really complain. It's always nice to see something that differentiates itself from other games that are more well-defined, but, you know, and as I said, this game kind of holds, like, a soft spot for me for playing this. So I guess you could say it's a guilty pleasure of mine for playing something that's completely different. And, you know, it's very rare that I actually get to do games like this, so might as well do something that's fun for once, I suppose. Alright, and when you're going through the levels or whatever, they consist of map grids that will show you where exactly you can go through within the levels. And when you go through the levels, there are buildings that you can trample upon, but somehow they will make you lose your energy by at least 4 points. And with Godzilla, you always start off with 600 points of energy, and you could trample on the army tanks, and you can also trample on rocket bases or whatever, or the rocket missile guns or whatever. But when you come close to them, they will always start attacking you, so that's something that you need to watch out for. And you need to make sure that you have a lot of energy for Godzilla when he goes up against his opponents. Like for this episode, since we're going to be taking down King Ghidorah, we need to make sure that we still have 600 points of energy when we have to fight him. But, you know, King Ghidorah is pretty much a cakewalk in this level, so for the most part, he is not that difficult. Alright, as you can tell, there are blue and yellow points, or blue and yellow tiles that are within the map. The blue tiles are used as nuclear energy reactors that can pretty much give Godzilla some more energy, or they can restore his health. So if you're low on health, be sure you use that as your priority before you go up against whatever giant monster that you're about to face. Now the yellow points, sometimes those, or yellow tiles, they will either give you information from the people who are working to save Japan, who are riding on the Super X or whatever. But yeah, they will either give you information, or you can end up finding some items that you can use in the battle, like some energy restorations, or some items that will help increase your defenses temporarily to where you're invincible in the battle, or one that you can actually use to greatly increase your fighting spirit. And that's something that I'll be talking about once we get to the battle. But yeah, as you would have guessed, this is pretty much what you end up doing throughout the whole game, is that you're going through the level trying to lead Godzilla to where the giant monster is located, or to where somebody is being held hostage, and you have to use him to try and free whoever is being held prisoner. Oh, and there's other tiles right there that I just passed by. Those are landmines, and if you step on landmines, they will take some of your energy away, but not a whole lot, like when you're trying to trample on the buildings and all that. But just take that in account to when you are going through the levels, because sometimes if you step on a bunch of landmines, then you're going to lose a lot of energy. But as I said, make sure you go to those blue tiles to restore your energy for Godzilla before we have to fight against whatever giant monster is about to come to us. And, you know, to be honest, I really haven't watched Godzilla movies that much, like James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, but I've started to watch him just recently, and they're actually pretty awesome flicks. Pretty good action flicks, or, yeah, you know, monster flicks that is truly popcorn entertainment, not only in the fight scene, in the fighting, but some of the stories, too. They're actually pretty well done for a country that knows how to make something very original. Alright, and when we get about 85 points closer to the enemy, which shows the distance, how far away we are, it will play the enemy approaches music, or Godzilla's theme in general. And this is probably the only game that has Godzilla's theme in the retro games that actually is rendered very well for a 16-bit game. Alright, and as you would have guessed, that pink dot on the screen, that is actually where King Ghidorah is. And sometimes he can bypass you, but make sure you come back to him so that way you can try to tackle him down. Alright, we are finally here on the battlefield. And King Ghidorah should be at this point right now, but evidently he's going to attack from the sky, and he will fight us from down here. Okay, now as the characters on the screen are telling us, they are telling us that the ferocious enemy monsters that we are fighting against have a big amount of fighting spirit. Now, what fighting spirit does is that when you attack your enemies there's going to be this gauge between the two enemies that determines how big your fighting spirit's going to be before you attack them. And the bigger the fighting spirit, the more powerful attacks that you can execute on your enemies. So that is something that you need to watch out for. But in order to get your abilities to show, you have to punch your enemy first, and then you execute the attack like that. And I think you execute it with either the B or the A button. And as you would have guessed, we are using one of Godzilla's most signature moves. That is the Hyper Fiery Breath. And that takes a lot of damage onto an enemy. Now, as I said, since we're fighting against King Ghidorah, it's actually a pretty standard brawl, and pretty much anybody can defeat this enemy in this fight. So, but I will say this right now, when you're in fights like this, you are not going to end up, you're going to end up taking damage sooner or later. So, that's something that you need to take into account. And sometimes if you punch at your enemies or try to swing your punches at them, sometimes their fighting spirit will stagger a little bit to where you can actually try to back them in a corner. So take that initiative as well. And I know some people out there saying that this game sucks. Well, it does, but, you know, at least somebody has to put up a good show and give their full and honest impression of this. Like, for example, I saw this guy on YouTube who actually did a Let's Play of Super Godzilla, and I gotta say, from what I've been hearing out of his Let's Play, he's just been constantly talking about how much this game sucks, and hasn't really been focusing a whole lot on the gameplay whatsoever, so it's kind of discouraging when you hear people just constantly talk about stuff like that, when they should overall be focused about the whole gameplay. Okay, so, as one of the characters was telling us, he was telling us that we need to be careful of King Ghidorah's light rays that he's shooting out of his mouth. Because if the three heads attack you with the light rays, then you will take a considerable amount of damage. But if the two heads attack you, they will take a moderate amount of damage onto you. And if I think only one head attacks, they will only just do light damage. So you want to be careful that you don't get hit by 2 or 3 of the lightning rays from the heads of King Ghidorah. And as I said, if you're low on energy, be sure you take initiative with the healing items that you found while you were on the grid or whatever. That will definitely help you out in the long run, especially with some of the tougher bosses that we're going to go up against, like Mecha-Godzilla and Biollante, because, my goodness, they are just the epitome of evil. And especially Bagan, who is the original monster in this game. But, yeah, as you would have guessed, in order to complete this level, we have to defeat the monster that is here. So, as you would have guessed, we have to make sure that we kill King Ghidorah. And I know I tend to be repeating that. And every time when we're about to execute an attack on the enemy, sometimes we have these unique little animations that takes place. I guess it's to make the game feel a bit cinematic, since, you know, with Godzilla movies, they're usually cinematic in a sense. So, I think I wouldn't think, but, you know, I believe this is actually a really unique thing. Sure, it may get a little bit repetitive, but it's actually kind of cool to watch some cinematics take place when Godzilla's trying to attack his foes or whatever. So, yeah, it's very unique. Alright, let's get a tail whip in and we will conclude this battle finally. As I said, it's a pretty standard brawl, so King Ghidorah was just all cakewalk. Which is very strange because with King Ghidorah, he's actually supposed to be very strong and very deadly when fighting against Godzilla. And oh my god, one of the heads fell off. But that is the symbol that we managed to defeat King Ghidorah. And we have completed that stage, finally. And after we defeat the monster, we get this little animation of Godzilla shooting his fiery breath. And then we are given the statistics on how well we did this stage. Specifically with the energy, time, how many buildings we destroy, which give us deductions, and whatever bonuses that we can find within the place. Okay. So we got at least a little bit over 4,000 points, so it's not that bad. Now, before I close off this episode, there are some differences between this version and the Japanese version, but I will get onto that in the next episode when we go up against Mecha-Godzilla. Alright, as you see right now, there is an alien spacecraft here. So, as I said, aliens are taking control of some of Godzilla's most deadliest enemies. And they apparently were using King Ghidorah they were taking control of King Ghidorah to destroy all of Japan. But we have taken control of Godzilla, and now the aliens are commending us for being very tough opponents. Yeah, you better not mess with humanity, because we know how to fight back when one tries to take us down, or whatever. But the aliens are not going to back down, as they have more giant moving monsters that we're going to go up against, as they will be controlling them all. But we have defeated one monster, and I think it will be time for us to take down the next one, which is Mecha-Godzilla, in the next episode. So I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to close things off right here. So next time on Double RPG Let's Play Retro Live Commentary with Super Godzilla on the Super Nintendo, we are going to go to the next level, which is level 2, where we are going to fight against Mecha-Godzilla. So that should be pretty fun. And it will be pretty tough too, but, you know, it should be a very fun battle coming up. Alright gamers, take care of yourselves, and I shall see you tomorrow for another episode. This is Double RPG signing off. Later gamers!